All right, we are live in the group and very excited to talk about this issue of entry-level employment. What is it all about? Why do vocational rehabilitation counselors constantly tell veterans that you're only able to get this approved? And look at that, my collar is all goofed up. That's fine, whatever, who cares? So anyway, today we're going to talk about this because it constantly comes up, and I want to make sure that any of you watching this are aware that, in fact, there may be more to the story, okay? I've been doing this for a long time. My name is Benjamin Krause. I'm a VA accredited attorney. Before that, I was a journalist and advocate for veterans, which I still am. And before that, I was just some dude going to college, using Voc Rehab, not knowing that the Department of Veterans Affairs may on occasion mislead you as a veteran. And whoa, did I know. It cost me about 3 years off the back end of my career as an attorney because I did not know to double check. And that was years ago, as the internet has now come into kind of its gravitas or fullness as to whether you can or cannot do lots of different things. Now we're learning exactly what it is that VR&E can and can't do, and how things work with your disability compensation benefits, and a whole variety of things. And so we're going to talk about that today because I think one of the key areas where veterans are, for better or for worse, I would say worse, but I don't work within the VA. But this is one of the areas that veterans are frequently misled. So I want to talk to you about that because it just ain't right. It just ain't right. So having said that, I am going to invite everyone into the thing. We are live in the group. Okay. So what we are going to be talking about is what this is all about. So with respect to Veteran Readiness and Employment, formerly Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment, there are a lot of misnomers and misunderstandings about what the program does, but there's also a lot of untruths. Or now we're kind of learning all these new words, right? So is it malinformation? Is it misinformation? Is it disinformation, right? So the disinformation would be, something that's kind of intentionally wrong, and we're doing it from the government perspective to mislead you. So I don't know. Or is it misinformation, where it's information that you just accidentally say, and maybe that's, in and of itself, something. So I don't know what the answer is, but what I do know is that we're going to talk about it here. And hopefully, if you're seeing this, it's a little later on Friday than normal. If you're seeing this on YouTube or LinkedIn, I want you to be aware that we have a 40,000 plus person or veteran Facebook group where, and it's linked below, where you can come in and talk to us and get information from other veterans that are in the group. The whole thing was created well before I was ever approved to go to law school, and created this as just a place where veterans could go get the truth and talk to each other about their own experiences, because a lot of what happens within VA, whether it's VR&E or anything else, a lot of what happens, at least when it is negative to veterans, is usually the result of misinformation or bad information, or maybe a VA employee that just doesn't feel like telling people the truth, things like that. So it happens all the time. And so we're going to talk about probably one of the most insidious lies that I've heard from VR&E, or about VR&E rather. And I'm going to explain to you what the truth is, and I'm going to explain to you how to find the truth if you run into this issue with a particular vocational rehabilitation counselor, so that you're able to fight back. And I'm going to tell you where to look. I'm typing it up right now so I can tell you where the regulation is, and how this could be the difference between you essentially being denied benefits or not. And so we're gonna get into it. But basically, at the core of this is, Can you use veteran readiness and employment to become something other than an entry-level employee? Can you use it to become a lawyer, a doctor, a professor, or other things that are maybe not entry level, whatever that might be? Now, if you talk to a lot of counselors out there, depending on the office, they're going to tell you, no, we're only required to approve training up to entry level employment. And in fact, this just came up like this week where I had a client, we were working on a couple things, and I noticed this in the form. So I reached out to the particular VA employee that gave us the form, and basically what it said in there is that they were asking the veteran for evidence of training, basically training needed for entry-level employment. That is literally the evidence that the VRC had in the form, and they were basically telling the veteran, directly, we're just only entry level here. Don't be mistaken. This is not to get you, a leg up in society, as far up as, Congress intended when they crafted the program, but instead, entry level only. Okay. And so this is what it said. And this is an auto-generated, message. And I'm going to quote it because I want everybody to know that what I'm about to read is, false, and it could result in veterans being misled. So I just want you to be aware that if you did come across this entry-level thing, it is false. So I'm first going to tell you where it shows up sometimes, and then second, I'm going to tell you where to find out what exactly is true and not true, right? Because you don't need to take, what am I? I'm just scum-sucking attorney here, where can you find this information for yourself? And so I'm going to tell you where it's at. So first, this is what the document said, and when I challenged, come to find out, this is auto-populated within this system. This is within the next step forms, which I believe is an acronym is VA Form 28-8606, I think it is. Anyway, so this will instructs you in the next steps when you're doing evaluation and planning. And so in this apparently this one office, and I assume many are like this, so that's why I wanted to talk about it, because it's so darn important. Quote, it reads, provide evidence of training needed for entry-level employment in your desired vocational field from above websites, okay? I'm not going to get into the other websites, but I do want you to know, if you're watching this, be on the lookout for this, okay? So don't be fooled. VA is not required to only provide you with entry-level employment training. Like, that's just not true. But a lot of veterans are misled, either intentionally or unintentionally, by counselors. Without the counselors really knowing this has happened, many don't even understand how this works. I've been dealing with it for years and years. I've been an attorney for over 10 years. And before that, I was a veteran trying to get benefits from VR&E, and they paid for my undergrad, law school, and then part of my law practice. And so that's kind of what leads me to this. Because, of course, if I became an attorney and VR&E also paid for my undergrad, wouldn't that stand to reason that we're not really looking at only entry-level employment and entry-level jobs? It would kind of suggest this to me. But, that's my take on it. So, having said that, entry level, this is false. So VR&E will train you to a higher level than what is generally considered entry level. And there's a bunch of different criteria about this. And so here I'm going to now read to you what the actual answer is, right? Because that's important. So, and where you can find it. So you can find it at 38 CFR 21.72. Okay, so you just search for it, you'll find it. Rehabilitation of the point of employability. And so what that talks about is the type of services that are needed. Okay, so I'm going to read to you the part that, again, this really chaps me because it's really obvious that this is not appropriate. It's not even true. In fact, if you look in the regulations and the policy manual, which is the M28C, the regulations are 38 CFR 21. That's the chapter. So if you look at those two things, you will realize that the term entry level, right, doesn't appear. There's nothing there. about it, right? So there's no requirement at all, because if it were a requirement, it would be in the regulation or it would be in the policy, but it's not. It's just a myth. This is just a thing that is passed down from generation to generation, from one old counselor to the baby counselor, and then they pass it on to veterans, and then many veterans repeat it because we don't know any better, right? Unless you go to law school like I did. You may just be unsuspecting and, take it hook, line, and sinker, and then that's the unfortunate, reality. So if you have any questions while I'm explaining this, feel free to ask a question in the comments below. I will see it while I'm doing this. Happy to answer questions as best I can. Just note that I don't see comments in LinkedIn through this live feed system. I will only see it in YouTube or Facebook. So if you're in one of these two spots, feel free to ask your question. When I'm done talking about this, I will answer or respond to you. So definitely stay tuned to the end, and I'll tell you what I think about your question. Okay? Happy to help. So anyway, what we're looking at is 21.72. This is a regulation. A, subpart 2. Quote, train the veteran. This is what is, generally what they're supposed to do, okay? Quote, train the veteran to the level generally recognized as necessary for entry into employment in a suitable occupational objective. Okay, notice it didn't say entry level. It says necessary for entry into employment in a suitable occupational objective. Oh, that seems a little more nuanced, right? When you continue to read that same part, where a particular degree, diploma, or certificate is generally necessary for entry into the occupation, e.g., an MSW for social work, MSW is short for Master of Social Work, the veteran shall be trained to that level. Oh, interesting. Okay. So you should be immediately realizing, like, okay, well, the regulation is talking about graduate training, not a bachelor's or not an associate's, right? We're talking about a master's degree here. Okay, and that's right toward the beginning of the entire regulation. But we don't need to stop there either, okay? So there's also additional provisions when the duration for the training may exceed general requirements, okay? So in other words, where you get more training. And what that says, it has a bunch of different criteria, but I'll skip the employment handicap part, but I'll talk about the serious employment handicap part. So now for veterans where they have a serious employment handicap, okay, wait for it. Department of Veterans Affairs will assist, okay? Department of Veterans Affairs will assist. Will, that's like must, right? Mandatory, shall, will, must, has to, or Santa ain't coming, that kind of thing. Will assist a veteran with a serious employment handicap to train to a higher level than is usually required to qualify in a particular occupation when one of the following exists. So now think about this. The train to even a higher level than is usually required. So if over here they say social work MSW, and that's like what is normal, okay, generally considered what is required, well, then what would be a higher level above that? Oh, well, I guess it could be becoming a psychologist, or it could be getting a doctor in social work, if that's really what you want to do, which I would strongly discourage because it's so stressful. But anyway, becoming a psychologist, becoming, something else. Anyway, the point is to a higher level. So higher level than what is normal. And normal, according to this, if you're going to be a social worker, is an MSW. And that's normal, okay? So I just want to point this out. Hey, it doesn't matter, ? Anyway, I'll get back to you in a second. So again, higher level is, I guess, the point that we're going to look at. And so So what does it take to get this higher level? Mandatory, right? Apparently, if these three conditions are met, any of them, not just all of them, but one of three, and there's three. So the first is that basically the type of work that you're going to be trying to do, you will be at a definite disadvantage when competing against non-disabled people for the same jobs. And additional training will help offset the competitive disadvantage. Well, wait a minute. Could this be that a veteran, who's only approved for a bachelor's degree in, say, computer science, or a bachelor's degree in business, or some other kind of bachelor's degree in social work? Well, geez, that's even lower, right? Any of these bachelors in psychology. Well, wait. If I have a serious employment handicap, does that mean that they should train me to a higher level? Well, apparently, it is true if you meet that criteria, where you would be at a definite disadvantage compared to a non-disabled person, which I would argue is practically every veteran that has any person with a diagnosed, confirmed, payable disability that is already entitled to VR&E benefits, right? Now, don't forget also that around 65% of veterans are found to have a serious employment handicap anyway. So that's 65% of the program. Do you think the VR&E is actually telling these people the truth when they're developing their plans? No, they're not. They're not doing that. They are only giving you the entry-level training, right? Not the other stuff. So it's really important that y'all know this. Okay. Now, here's the other two criteria. So the number of feasible occupations are restricted, and the additional training will enhance the veteran's employability in one of those occupations. Again, the term here is enhance. Oh, geez. So if the number of feasible occupations are restricted, and the additional training enhances my employability, well, that seems like an even lower bar than the other one. Because what kinds of jobs in this current market, at least, are not limited? I mean, people are getting laid off all over the place. So this could be, in my opinion, practically anybody in a white-collar job right now, and many other types of occupations are going to fit this. What if you're approved to be an MD? Let's say you're approved to be a physician or a lawyer. This could actually be higher than that. You could even get like a LLM maybe, or an MPH on top of your MD maybe, because you're the physician. Like only an MD is like the bare minimum. You still got to do your residency, and that's just normal. On top of that, then the sky's the limit, right? So you got to really think about it in that context. And this is essentially what Congress wanted. So if anyone tells you otherwise, like, well, Congress wanted this, and then these are VA's own regulations. This is their words about what they're supposed to do. It shouldn't be a mystery, and yet it is. So I don't know why that is, but for decades this has been a mystery. And yet this regulation has been in place for who knows. Let's see how long. 1984. Okay. What year is it? Oh, wow. It's definitely way past 1984. Oh, it's 2020. This has been in place for 40 years. Almost 40 years. I should do an article on this, the 40-year anniversary of the regulation VRE wished it never existed, something like that. That sure would be fun. Anyway, point is that there's criteria to get the additional training. If you have a serious employment handicap, which is the vast majority of veterans in VR&E who have serious employment handicaps, you should qualify for the additional training, right? And VRE is mandated to do it. They have to consider this, but they rarely ever do, and they definitely don't want to talk about it. I can't even tell you how many appeals I've had where I've brought this up in writing, and the VRC or the office that I'm fighting against literally won't even reference it. They won't write it down. They act like I didn't say it, even though it's written down. So in those cases, take a while to sort out, but that's your government for you, right? And then the last criteria is the number of employment opportunities within feasible occupations are restricted. Again, in this market, wow, this could be darn near everybody. Okay, because if you haven't been paying attention, everybody is getting laid off, right? Lots of people, So if you're a veteran and you're in this program, I'll tell you what, I am going for a graduate degree potentially a doctorate, depending on what I'm doing, and maybe even additional certs after that, just to get super specialized, right? Because you're already older, you have disabilities to begin with, and now you got to go compete against a bunch of young bucks that don't have the same hindrances, don't have children, they don't have the issues of military service that most of us end up with, whether we want to admit it or not. So anyway, that's the riff. The riff here is entry level. That whole thing is a total myth. It's BS. If a counselor tells you that they're only required to train veterans to the entry level, the minimum required, that is complete BS. Okay? It is false, untrue. Even if you're a veteran with only an employment handicap, entry level employment is likely not suitable for you. You're not 21. You're not undisabled. You can't unring that bell. So, just by the fact that you're in the program, they're admitting that you have vocational impairments. Okay. So I don't know. They're screwing up in my mind. But anyway, talking about all that stuff. So I'm going to answer some questions now. Again, I got into this kind of late today, but I wanted to talk about it because, man, this whole entry level thing is still a problem. I've been fighting this for ever since I was an advocate, before I even became an attorney, and there's still BS in vets all the time. It's crazy. So anywho, let's see here. We have some questions. So one veteran writes in, can we do a class action suit against these shenanigans? No, you can't. Okay. I know a lot of veterans think, oh, class action is sexy. Even if you could do a class action is going to cost you about $1 to $2 million to bring. In most instances, they're super expensive to do. And then in addition to that, generally speaking, but not always, you can't sue for shenanigans of a federal employee in this context because in most instances, due to 38 USC 511, you cannot bring something like this into normal court. And while you can do a class action claim at the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, this likely would not be a good fit in this context. You're almost doing like a writ of prohibition or something to try to prevent them from doing it. It just probably would not work. But it's an interesting idea. Then another same veteran writes in, can a veteran file a lawsuit against VRC who woefully... So generally, no, you can't because this is a benefits type of claim, and VA has successfully been defended against that type of stuff by the DOJ, Department of Justice, for quite a few years, and it's pretty well established now that when it comes to benefits, the Secretary has sole oversight and a couple select courts, but generally you cannot go into normal district court like you could for any other matter of malpractice, which is really what this is about, because in this context, this is a benefit, and so you just can't, unfortunately. But that's how it be. All right, so we have, does it matter? I wish I knew your name, but I don't know your name. Anyway, so Voc Rehab on the outside says the same thing. They get trained to tell you entry level only. This is true. Half of them don't even know they can train higher. Also true. I agree with you. This is what I've been told as well. So let's see here. Then we have, sir, does VRE pay as GI Bill? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the answer is to this generally yes, so long as you have GI Bill entitlement remaining. As long as you don't use it up, you should be able to have that available to you. So anyway, I hope that helps. And then let's see here. Let's see. Kevin. Okay. So I'm a returning master in the U.S. Currently going to school. Okay. So I would use the GI Bill immediately. I would not use I would use VRE. I would not use the GI Bill. I would preserve your GI Bill at all costs. Use VR&E. VR&E can pay for a lot more than what you can get through the GI Bill. And for more time, especially if you have a serious employment handicap, and then you preserve your GI Bill for whatever you want to use it for, basket weaving or something fun, later. But for anything technical or work related, or toward that type of objective, bachelor's degree, master's degree, so long as it's, even in cyber, I would say use up the GI or the VRE program as much as you can. And, anyway, so that's my take on that. So I hope it helps. But generally speaking, as long as you have GI Bill entitlement remaining and you're approved, right, for VRE training, they will allow you to opt in for the higher level subsistence, which is essentially, maybe give or take a penny, going to be about the same as the GI Bill. So I would definitely use the GI Bill, Kevin, like I keep saying that. I think it's like too late in the day. I better get off here before I say something really crazy. But anyway, so VRE, use VRE first. Save the GI Bill. GI Bill is fun for like other things. But if you can use up the VRE program for everything, for your training to get you into a right career, that's, I think, in my opinion, the better way to go for practically every veteran. Let's see here. VA, we're told 2-year degree or a certification only, no online class. Okay, so first of all, I can't speak to your specific situation, so there could be another reason why the counselor is telling you this. What I will say is a lot of veterans use VR&E through online training, whether it's hybrid or whether it's like completely online. So I just want you to be aware. And then otherwise, no, 2-year degree, that's garbage. Absolute garbage. In fact, I've been able to help people get approved, like if it's cyber is a good example, for master's degrees in cyber, right? As well as certs on top of the master's degrees, okay? But you have to know what you're doing. And again, if you're watching this and you're like, man, I have this runaround with a counselor, they're giving me false information. What do I do? I just got denied or something. At our firm, you're happy to reach out. If you have a denial and you want us to take a look, we don't charge for that. It's called a case evaluation or a consult. We don't charge for it. If you've been denied, we're happy to take a look. Now, if you're a veteran and you have not been denied benefits, we don't generally get involved because we're precluded by law from really representing for the normal, pay that we do until a veteran has a decision. So that's the way the law works. So you don't have an opportunity to hire an attorney at any stage that you would like. Unfortunately, it's just how the laws work right now. So, but if you get denied and things didn't work out for you, feel free to reach out to us. My contact information is in the link below. So you feel free to reach out if you have questions. Let's see here. So I'm happy to see a lot of people have, okay. So let's see here. Okay, Kevin asked a question. This is a good one. So what is the approval rate for voc rehab? So it depends on how you jigger the numbers. So VR&E VA in general is really good at manipulating statistics to make themselves look like they're performing better than they might be. However, when I looked at this back, I think originally in 2007, so more than 15 years ago, the IG had done an investigation and concluded at that time that the success rate of a veteran, like basically when you factor in all the veterans who apply and compare it to the veterans that finish, that the success rate is about 18%. So I hope that helps, but about 18%. It may be a little higher, a little lower, but every year there's about 10,000 veterans that finish, 12,000 maybe, that complete the program. But there's, 100,000 that apply. So you kind of do the math, right? So do the math, 100,000 apply, 12,000 graduate every year. Yeah, numbers are a little risky, but a lot of that has to do with veterans who apply but don't understand the program and, maybe don't even have disability ratings. They apply anyway. There's a lot of reasons why it happens. I would say, I think it's about 40 or 50,000 that are found entitled. And then of that, there's a pretty good drop rate. Anyway, so, it comes out to probably 18%, of those that are entitled, so it's hard to say because there's a lot of variables. So John says, I like that. Been out of work as a former Fed scientist for 8 years, 100% rated, 48 years old. Okay. So you're young. I say that right because I'm 47, so so I have to think you're young. Otherwise, I'm in trouble. My counselor is offering interview and resume help. I'd like to go back to school, year-long program, MS. Okay, so I think a lot of that depends on your background, John, and a lot of different things. I've been able to help people get approved for things despite having graduate training. So just because a person has a master's degree or a VR&E, okay, so for training. So, it just depends. Each case is super unique. So I want you to be aware. Each case is unique. And even if they say no, dude, reach out to us. We'll take a look. It's what I do for a living. Most of my work is VRE centric. And so I do this. I wrote a book about it. So if you get denied and you have questions, man, feel free to reach out. So let's see here. Nomad Nurse. My GI Bill expired. 3 months left. Am I out of luck? No. So you can still use VRE. However, you will get the regular subsistence rate, but you could still use it. You could use it multiple times. So as long as the evidence shows that you're entitled. So yeah, don't sweat it. You can still use it. You just won't get the higher BAH, which depending on where you're living could be a big deal. It just depends. So Hugh, let's see. I'm asking small business, can you use voc rehab for assistance? The answer is yes. I would anticipate a fight, Hugh, but you can use it for that purpose. Okay. So, it's a lot of work. So what else do we have going on here? Didn't you mention in a video? Okay. Previous video, the VRE is 80% likely to send a veteran to school that is deemed feasible. I don't recall this. I may have said something about it, but I'm not totally sure if you're quoting me. It doesn't sound like something I would have said, at least not that way. So I'm going to try to understand what you're saying here. So didn't you mention previous VRE is 80% likely to send a veteran to school? Oh, yeah. Okay, I get it. So I want to say that about 70% of veterans who are approved for long-range goals are approved for school, something like that. So I think that's what you're referring to. So my point was saying that even though VRE keeps trying to say, oh, we're just an employment program, well, then you're in the educational section of the CFR for VA, and you're approving like 70% of everybody that goes into VRE for training. So I get it, but come on, they say the employment program thing is kind of a red herring, I think, to distract. So that's kind of my thought. I think they try to mislead veterans that way. So Ian, will VRE pay for a degree at a private university? Yes. I know that. Well, first of all, I've helped a lot of veterans get into private universities all over the country, but I myself attended probably four different private universities through VRE myself. So I know it from personal experience, and I've helped people do it. So anyway, hope that helps. And then, if it definite, the VA will call you and reevaluation your conditions at the 5-year mark. I maybe I missed something here, but I mean the VA can always call you in. They do it all the time. It doesn't really like if you're permanent in total. I've heard stories of guys 10 years haven't been in for an exam and suddenly they get called in. So the agency just does shit like you. Pardon my French, but I don't know. Half the time they're wrong, but you never know, why they do stuff anyway. So let's see here. And sometimes success means they interview you find a job. So, right. That's true. And so if they try to convince you to accept less than what you otherwise should normally get, yeah, success for them. You got screwed and you miss out on benefits, but they're all happy. Magnificent. The education is considered a necessary part of the effort to get the job, not the goal itself. True. Yes. Right. The goal is to get the job. The training is part of that. So it's an intermediate objective. So let's see. All right. Well, that's all I got here. So anyway, I thank you guys. God bless. I'm a little tired, so I'm going to hold off on the usual pleasantries at the end here, but really appreciate you all for tuning in. And otherwise, yeah, hope this helps. I'm sure it'll help somebody. So I usually hear about it at some point. So anyway, God bless and have a great weekend, folks. All right, take care. Bye for now.